역사적인 제1회 싱크탱크 2022 포럼에 참석하신 여러분 진심으로 환영합니다. 저는 오늘 포럼의 사회를 맡게 된 아나운서 조우종입니다. 여러분 반갑습니다. 자, 정말 많은 분들이 이렇게 전 세계에서 함께하고 계신데요. 코로나 팬데믹으로 서로 만날 수 없는 상황이 계속되고 있는 안타까운 현실입니다. 오늘 이렇게 시간과 공간을 초월해서 한국과 미국 그리고 일본을 3원으로 연결해서 각국의 전문가들을 모시고 포럼을 진행하게 됐습니다. 자, 오늘 마크 폼페이오 제70대 미국 국무장관을 기조연설단을 모시고요. 환영사는 싱크탱크 2022 포럼의 추진위원장을 맡고 계신 윤영호 위원장께서 해주시겠습니다. 여러분 따뜻한 환영의 박수 부탁드립니다.
신통일 한국의 길이라는 주제로 개최되는 전 세계 신통일 한국을 위한 지식 연대체인 싱크탱크 2022가 개최하는 포럼에 오신 여러분들을 진심으로 환영합니다. 존경하는 지도자 여러분, 지금 전 세계는 작년 1월부터 본격적으로 시작된 코로나 바이러스 팬데믹의 영향으로 정치, 경제, 보건, 복지 등 전 방위적 분야의 심각한 피해와 그리고 국가 이기주의에 기반한 자기 국가와 그리고 자기 국민을 우선시하는 정책과 풍조로 인해 화합과 상생보다는 분열과 갈등으로 점철된 세계로 향하고 있습니다. 분열과 갈등 그리고 대립과 투쟁을 인간사의 한 부분으로 당연시하며 오늘을 살아가고 있습니다. 하나의 통일 세계는 불가능한 것일까? 하나의 화합과 상생의 세계는 불가능한 것일까? 하나의 항구적 평화 세계 실현은 불가능한 것일까? 국제적 단결과 단합을 형성할 초석인 싱크탱크 2022의 출발은 이러한 물음에 대한 해답을 찾는 과정에서 시작되었습니다. 한학자 총재님께서는 한반도는 물론 전 세계적으로 팽배한 이러한 갈등과 분열을 봉합하고 공생, 공영, 공의가 실현된 신통일 한국과 그리고 신통일 세계의 비전을 주창하셨습니다. 그리고 지난 9월 12일에는 이러한 싱크탱크 2022를 중심으로 대한민국의 저명한 지도자들과 함께 도널드 트럼프 전 미국 대통령, 아베 신조 전 일본 수상, 바로조 전 유럽 집행위원장, 훈센 캄보디아 수상 등 전 세계적으로 저명한 정상급 지도자들이 대거 참여한 가운데 신통일 한국을 위한 싱크탱크 2022 희망전진 대회를 대승리 속에 개최하였습니다. 한학자 총재님께서는 이러한 역사적인 싱크탱크 2022를 중심으로 단순한 이상적 비전 제시의 차원을 넘어 신통일 한국에 대한 정치, 경제, 종교, 외교, 안보, 문화, 언론, 학술 등 전 방위적 분야에서 치열한 담론의 장을 매우 구체적인 정책을 도출하기 위해서 열어주셨고, 이를 통해 남과 북은 물론 남북 공동 수교를 맺은 157개국의 정상급 지도자들과 함께 한반도 평화 서밋을 개최하여 새로운 한반도 평화 통일의 지도를 그리고자 하십니다. 역사적 대장정의 첫 발걸음을 내딛는 오늘 첫 번째 기조연설자로 전 세계적으로 너무도 저명한 마이크 폼페이오 제70대 미국 국무장관을 모시게 되었습니다. 한반도 평화 통일의 가장 중요한 모멘텀이었던 미북 회담의 실무 책임을 졌던 마이크 폼페이오 국무장관의 기조연설과 고개는 신통일 한국을 위한 새로운 안목과 지평을 열어줄 것이라 생각합니다. 여러분, 마이크 폼페이오 우리 장관님께 환영과 함께 큰 감사의 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다.
Hello, everyone. It's really an honor to be with you today. I, of course, want to thank the Universal Peace Federation and the Washington Times Foundation for hosting this important forum, Think Tank 2022. You serve an important function in building on peace. And that the Global Peace Summit on the peaceful reunifying of Korea will be held with the participation of 157 countries in Seoul early next year. Thank you, Dr. Moon, for such work and for building on peace. My key message today is this: One of the most important ways to create one family under God is to make sure people are free to actually worship God. Religious freedom is crucial to peace in Northeast Asia and indeed the world. We worked on it hard for 4 years. Many of you know that we spent a lot of time on this. Thanks to American liberators, prisoner 596, held in the Hongdam labor camp during the war, did make it out. You may know him better as the Reverend Sun Myung Moon. Indeed, after being freed, the late Reverend Moon spent his life for a laudable goal: one family under God. His wife, Dr. Moon, still holds out that same hope of that future today, and it's a big dream. It's going to take a lot of work and prayers to get there. And even if that goal sounds too ambitious for you, we can all agree we want mankind to live in peace and in harmony. Let's go back to May of 2018. I'd been the Secretary of State for just a couple of weeks. President Trump asked me to go to North Korea to meet with Chairman Kim, to work on arrangements for the summit in Singapore in June of that year. I certainly hit the ground running in that job. In the course of my meetings with Chairman Kim, I repeated the president's request, indeed his expectation, that he release 3 Korean-American men who had been detained inside North Korea. Kim Dong-chul, Kim Hak-song, and Tony Kim were held in part for being men of faith. Now, thank God, I was able to return home with those men. If I didn't personally ask Chairman Kim to free those 3 men I spoke of earlier, I'm not sure it would have happened. And the historic meetings between President Trump and Chairman Kim showed the power of a personal connection as well. In the end, we didn't get everything that we prayed for and that we wanted. But the first ever leader-level meetings between an American president and a North Korean leader ultimately produced an agreement from North Korea to denuclearize. This was the first ever leader-level commitment to do so. Those negotiations also resulted in a long moratorium on nuclear testing and the testing of their long-range intercontinental missiles. And when they can't conduct those high-end tests, their ability to gather data on what they have and how to improve it is reduced. The risk of accidents from those and the collateral damage to the peninsula is also reduced. We should never give up. We should never give up hope of peace and reunification. Indeed, those 3 men who came back with me from North Korea never gave up. Even in the darkest night of gloom, they were hopeful they would one day be together with their families together. I remember this night so well. When we got off that plane at Andrews Air Force Base in the middle of the night, it was an incredible scene. That night on the tarmac was certainly a joyful one, but it was just a foretaste of the joy the 2 whole nations will experience when the Korean Peninsula peacefully comes together as one. I hope that that day is soon. Thank you all for being with me here today, and may God bless each of you. I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 정말로 우리가 마음에 아로새겨야 될 귀한 기조연설을 해주셨습니다. 이어서 이 시간은 총평의 시간입니다. 자, 총평은 김현철 정 장관님께서 해주시겠습니다.
안녕하십니까. 방금 소개받은 김면철입니다. 폼페오 장관님의 발표를 잘 들었습니다. 인권 개선에 대한 폼페오 장관님의 노력에 경의를 표합니다. 그리고 한반도의 평화와 통일에 대한 응원과 격려도 감사의 인사를 드리고 싶습니다. 마지막으로 한반도와 동북아 지역 정세에 대한 폼페오 장관님의 깊이 있는 성찰을 잘 들었습니다. 몇 가지 쟁점에 대한 저의 의견을 간략하게 밝히고자 합니다. 먼저 인권 문제에 대한 생각입니다. 한반도의 특성을 고려했을 때 인권 문제에 대해서는 3개의 원칙이 필요하다고 생각합니다. 첫 번째는 대결이 아니라 협력이 훨씬 효과적입니다. 동서독의 분단 시기 이때 서독의 인권정책 변화를 주목할 필요가 있습니다. 결국 대결적 인권정책에서 협력적 인권정책으로 전환했을 때 동독의 실질적인 인권 개선이 이루어졌습니다. 둘째는 균형적 접근입니다. 자유권의 중요성만큼 사회권이 중요합니다. 유엔 인권 협약에서도 A 규약과 B 규약의 균형 있는 접근이 필요합니다. 따라서 제재의 목적에 집중하면서도 인도적 위기를 완화시킬 수 있는 유연한 대응도 필요합니다. 세 번째는 인권 감수성에 의한 인권 정책이 필요합니다. 어둠으로 어둠을 이길 수 없고 빛만이 어둠을 이길 수 있습니다. 주먹을 쥐고 악수를 할 수 없듯이 폭력적인 방식으로 혹은 반인권적인 수단으로 인권을 개선하는 것은 한계가 있습니다. 역사적으로 2000년대 초반에 육자회담의 성과는 미중 양국이 협력을 했기 때문에 가능했습니다. 동시에 북한의 비핵화 과정에서 만들어질 한반도의 정전체제를 항구적인 평화체제로 전환하기 위해서도 미중 협력이 필요합니다. 현재와 같은 미중 양국의 전략 경쟁이 군사 분야로 확대되면 한반도는 군비 경쟁이 지속되고 안보 딜레마에 처할 가능성이 있습니다. 한미동맹은 한반도에서 평화를 확고히 지키는 안보 동맹이면서 동시에 평화를 만들어가는 미래 동맹이라고 생각합니다. 폼페오 장관님이 앞으로도 지속 가능한 미래지향적인 한미동맹의 발전을 위해 노력해 줄 것을 부탁드리겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
네, 감사합니다. 자, 이어서 이 시간은 전문 패널 분들을 모시고 대담을 하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 자, 기조연설에 대한 이해를 심화시키는 전문 패널들의 질의 그리고 대담을 위해서 특별히 한국과 미국 그리고 일본의 외교 전문가들께서 함께 해주고 계십니다. 자, 이 시간은 한일미 국가별로 기조연설을 해주신 마크 폼페이오 전 장관님과 함께 대담을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 연결해 보겠습니다. 미국 패널 분들께 마이크 넘기겠습니다.
Let me just say that I thought Secretary Pompeo had a very impressive and very authoritative. I'm very honored to be here as part of a panel with Ambassador Chris Hill, who has been working on Korean issues since the mid-1980s for over 30 years. His knowledge is far greater than mine about specifics in the Korean environment. And I just wanted to ask Ambassador Hill to comment on how he saw this and what his response was to the deep commitment to religious liberty that Secretary Pompeo made.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for those very kind words. And let me thank all the organizers, the Universal Peace Federation, the Washington Times Foundation for putting together this extraordinary think tank 2022. These are important times. These are difficult times. These are times that an American writer, some almost 250 years ago, Thomas Paine, said, these are the times that try men's souls. These are very, very difficult times indeed. And I think it's a time that we all need to kind of pull together, work together, strengthen ourselves, and most importantly, have self-confidence in ourselves to carry the burden forward, because we must succeed in this venture, this venture of convincing the North Koreans that they will have a better future without weapons than with these weapons. But to the specific question that Mr. Gingrich has asked me, I cannot imagine a situation where we do bring North Korea closer when they have not made strides, important strides in the area of religious freedom. They clearly do not understand that. They clearly have regarded religion as a threat to their own kind of version of it, if you will. So I think it is very important that they understand that this is important to us. This is important to all of us. The need for a kind of universal values, the need to understand what freedom is, what the right to believe and what you want to believe. And what I would like to ask Secretary Pompeo is this a person, based on Secretary Pompeo's personal experience that many of us, or most of us, almost all of us, don't have, is this a person who can be an interlocutor in a negotiation? Because the fundamental problem, apart from the fact that the North Koreans have not agreed to give up these weapons, a fundamental problem is we don't even seem to have a negotiating partner right now. So my question is, can Kim Jong-un be that negotiating partner?
Well, Ambassador, thanks for the question. And thanks to one thought, your comment about having confidence, I think, is really important. In the end, those of us who believe that faith matters, those of us who are committed to Western ideals of property rights and liberty and freedom, we will prevail. And so thank you for reminding us all that we'll need confidence to successfully reunify peacefully the Korean Peninsula as well. As for Chairman Kim, I did spend a lot of time with him. I have respect for him. He engaged with us in a way that was logical, but he never was able to make the jump that you described, the jump that said that for his interest, the nation would be better off without their nuclear weapons than with them. As for whether he will ultimately be the person who makes that decision, I think there are lots of external factors at play. I pray that he's the right fellow. He certainly has the intellect and capacity to be that person. The world will have to put to him hard decisions and pray that he makes the right one.
And let me just say, I think this has been a very important conversation. And I want to now return to our Korean hosts the opportunity to continue this dialogue and to thank them for the leadership they're showing and bringing together this literally worldwide conference and worldwide opportunity to have a conversation.
네, 잘 들었습니다. 네, 미국 스튜디오 감사합니다. 네, 빙그리치 전 하원 의장님을 필두로 해서 정말 활발한 토의와 날카로운 질의응답이 이어졌습니다. 자, 다음은 바로 이곳이죠. 청심 평화월드센터에 참석하고 계시는 한국 패널 분들께 마이크를 넘겨보도록 하겠습니다. 부탁드리겠습니다.
폼페이오 장관님 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 현재 북미 대화가 중단되고 있습니다. 현 교착 상태를 타개하기 위해서 저는 미국에게 다음의 세 가지 조치를 제안하면서 우리 폼페이오 장관님의 의견 말씀을 듣고자 합니다. 첫째, 트럼프 전 대통령이 약속한 한미연합훈련 중단을 미국이 천명해서 싱가포르 합의 실천 의지를 보이는 일이 중요하다고 생각합니다. 둘째, 싱가포르 새 합의에 대한 미국의 동시 이행 계획 예시도 한 방법이라고 봅니다. 싱가포르 합의 준수는 평화적인 한반도 비핵화, 한반도 평화체제 구축을 열어나갈 유일한 길이라고 생각하기 때문입니다. 셋째, 북한이 제재, 코로나, 수해 등으로 겪는 어려움을 감안해서 민생과 관련되는 제재의 일시 유예나 중단을 미국이 솔선하는 것도 중단된 북미 대화를 다시 재개하는 데 도움이 될 것이라고 생각합니다. 존경하는 폼페이오 장관님의 의견 말씀을 듣고자 합니다.
Yes, thank you. As for the commitments that we made in Singapore and then following that in the negotiations that ran up to the summit that the two leaders had in Hanoi, we did make a commitment that we would not conduct major exercises. I think we lived up to that commitment. Second thought with respect to sanctions. We, of course, know that we don't place sanctions on food and, on medicine or the capacity for the World Food Program to get inside of North Korea. We want to make sure that when medicine is needed or when food is needed, that it can get into the country, but that food actually gets to the North Korean people and isn't resold in the black markets for the benefit of just a few inside of North Korea.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary Pompeo. I have listened to your speech very carefully, and it is really remarkable. In my analysis, it is a big shift of China's stance on North Korea, quite different from the previous China leaders' position and their thinking on North Korea. When it comes to North Korean nuclear question, China had joined the strengthened sanction resolutions against North Korea. For example, in the United Nations Security Council, even early years of Xi Jinping presidency. Why do you think China under Xi Jinping had changed its stance on Kim Jong-un or North Korea?
I think Xi was under enormous pressure at the time to be part of the global order. Everyone else, that would have been the outlier. Even the Russians were fully on board with this. And so I think he believed that it would have been very difficult for China to stand there and oppose those. So while they signed on to the UN Security Council resolutions and indeed voted for them, so it was a complicated double game, and we saw them support the sanctions at the UN while undermining them on the ground and at sea all too often.
천주 평화연합에서 주최한 띵탱크 2022 포럼에 참석해 주셔서 귀한 말씀을 나눠주셔서 진심으로 감사드립니다. 대한민국 문재인 대통령은 유엔 총회 연설에서 한반도 비무장지대 DMZ의 국제평화지대를 만들자고 제안한 적이 있습니다. 국제평화지대라는 게 말 그대로 모든 나라가 평화롭게 교류하고 소통하자는 공간인데 국제기구라는 맥락에서 보면은 그러한 역할을 하는 곳은 유나이티드 네이션, 국제연합입니다. 그래서 저희들은 한반도 비무장지대에 유엔 사무국 같은 국제기구를 설립하면 한반도 평화뿐만이 아니라 동북아 평화 그리고 세계 평화에도 크게 기여할 수 있을 것으로 기대를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 한반도 비무장지대에 그런 기구를 설치해서 한반도 평화뿐만이 아니라 동북아 평화, 세계 평화를 조율할 수 있는 그런 논의의 공간을 만들고자 하는 게 저희 대한민국 국민들의 바람이기도 합니다. 미스터 폼페이오, 당신께서 만약 미국의 최고 정책 결정권자라면은 한반도 국민들이 추진하고 있는 유엔 사무국 설립과 같은 이런 우리들의 노력에 대해서 외교적으로 지지하고 지원해 줄 용의가 있는지 그 점에 대한 답을 듣고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
So I haven't given that direct thought. We should, if we begin to head down a path like that, we should make sure we understand its objective. And my view is, too, we all know, you all live this every day. We all know that there are deep, complex set of rules that govern that space today, agreed to a long time ago and honored mostly by both North and South Korea, right? A set of very rigid understandings as between the two countries. But if it were the case that a UN secretary in that place could deliver, could convince the North Koreans to engage in serious dialogue, and the North Koreans would understand that in the end, the objective wasn't just to have another set of dialogue so they could continue to build out their nuclear program, which is what I fear is Chairman Kim's short-run plan to tie us all up in conversations, to have us have, secretariats and UN organizations talking in flowery language, all the while he continues to build out further his weapons program, not just his missile program, but the capability to conduct complex tests. And the risk to the world of proliferation from North Korea should not be underestimated as well. We know that the North Koreans have played games and transferred technology to other places in the world, and we have to make sure that we don't permit our desire for peace, our deep, unabiding commitment to delivering peaceful reunification, to give Chairman Kim an absolute free pass to continue to build out his program.
제가 생각하는 문제에 대해서 장관님의 견해를 듣고 싶습니다. 트럼프 행정부의 대화와 압박 전략은 한국과 미국의 대북한 관계에서 분명히 성과가 있었다라고 생각하지만 우리가 원하는 실질적인 성과에는 미흡하였다고 생각이 됩니다. 북한은 미국과의 대화를 우선시하다 보니 오히려 우리 남한 정부의 진지한 대화 노력을 경시하는 태도를 보이고 있습니다. 이러한 북한 태도에 원인과 또 이를 변화시킬 수 있는 방안이 있다라고 생각하면은 폼페이오 장관님의 생각은 어떠하신지 듣고 싶습니다.
And so your question was, how do we change this? How do we convince Chairman Kim? I think there are three things. One I've spoken about, that is we should have enormous confidence that we are right about the need for this denuclearization. I hear sometimes people make the case that we should just accept North Korea as a nuclear power. I think that is dangerous for the world. I know it is dangerous for the people of South Korea. So we should never lose resolve that the denuclearization of North Korea is an absolute imperative. Second, I think there is no substitute for pressure on Chairman Kim. What do I mean by pressure? I've talked about the sanctions regime that the UN has put in place. But we should also promote the pressure that can come from within North Korea. The North Korean leadership for now 3 generations has told its people that our security depends on these nuclear weapons. I think the North Korean people know better than that. And so pressure from within and pressure from without and resolve are the tools that will, I believe, ultimately lead Chairman Kim to make the right decision for the people of North Korea, for himself, and indeed for South Korea, the peninsula, and the world.
네, 마크 폼페이오 전 장관 감사합니다. 자, 정말 활발한 토의와 날카로운 질의응답 시간이었습니다. 남북 관계에 있어서 미국의 역할이 매우 중요하다는 것은 주지의 사실인 것 같습니다. 잘 들었습니다. 다음으로 일본 패널 분들께 도쿄로 한번 마이크를 넘겨보도록 하겠습니다. 도쿄 나와 주십시오.
Thank you very much. My name is Yamaguchi. I was asked to moderate this part of the panel. And before asking my colleagues to raise issues and raise points and ask questions, I'd like to thank Mr. Secretary for your impressive and inspiring remarks. Thank you very much for that. And another point is to Mr. Secretary is his point, never give up the goal for peaceful unification. That is very, very strong message to us. And in that sense, after unification or unification process, harmonized efforts of US, Korea, Japan is essential. I believe that we cannot be too soon to get started for preparation for that assistance. By that, I would like to ask my colleagues to ask questions. First, Ambassador Abe, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, I wish to thank for this organization to have invited me to join this session, very important one. I also wish to join all the people who have expressed appreciation to Dr. Moon and all the organizations who have organized this Think Tank 2022. I support denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and the reunification of 2 Koreas, denuclearization of the peninsula based on the Singapore joint statement. But very often, the question of human rights is pushed aside throughout the long history of our negotiations with North Koreans. They don't like it. They hate the issue. But in Japan in particular, we have very pressing issue of those young Japanese boys and girls abducted by North Koreans and kept there for more than 30, 40 years. This is a horrible humanitarian situation. And I wish, Mr. Secretary, you can support making this humanitarian issue as a priority issue to be taken up in our negotiations with the North Koreans. That's my question.
Well, thank you for the question. I'm glad you raised this issue. It is an important issue. We were asked to present this to the North Koreans. You should know we were faithful in doing that. Each time that I met with Chairman Kim, and indeed I can say that in each meeting I was in with President Trump, he raised this issue. We know how important it is to the Japanese people, certainly those directly affected, but to your nation even more broadly. But I think to your larger point, this is a central challenge of human rights with North Korea. This was certainly a priority for the United States in working through the full scope of the challenges presented by the North Korean leadership, and we made it a priority to try and resolve it in a way that would respect what the Japanese people are ultimately deserving of.
So I'd like to ask a specific question. What about resumption of the six-party talks framework, that kind of framework which Ambassador Hill worked very hard? We know that Russia and China are not much maybe interested in this resumption of this kind of framework. But as Ambassador Abe said, from our point of view, the participation of Japan in this kind of framework is very important to sort of achieve our goal, that is to solve denuclearization of Korea and North Korea and Korean Peninsula and achieve normalization of Japan-North Korea relations, solving, of course, the question of these abduction cases. So I'd like to ask your comment on this kind of question.
During our 4 years, we concluded that the most likely way to do this was a direct conversation between the leaders of our two countries, that this was different, we could break out of the mold. I know the model that had been used before, certainly by Ambassador Hill, a noble effort, and we simply came to believe, in part because we thought it made the most sense to be a good outcome, but second, from Chairman Kim himself, it became pretty clear to us that he wanted direct conversations, personal direct conversations with the United States of America, and he didn't want other countries to participate in that. I think he believed it was his best opportunity to get what it was that he was seeking.
There is a burning question among us, which is on the Korea-Japanese relations, particularly political challenges between South Korean government, the Japanese government, the politicians. Particularly when we look at the fact that there is a plan, a proposed plan for Korea-Japan tunnel, we need to take every opportunity to have better opportunity, better relations with South Korea. In that sense, I'd like to ask a comment from Mr. Secretary about our idea of promoting the construction of Korea-Japan tunnel, undersea tunnel.
And what I hope happens is that in both of those countries, in each of those countries, in South Korea and in Japan, the people of those countries will come to recognize that they should put aside using history and conflict between those two countries as a political cudgel inside of their own nation. I think they should be unified in their understanding that a good relationship between those two countries is really important. You know, we take for granted the importance of the economic relationship between the three countries, the United States, South Korea, and Japan. We sometimes take for granted the really important diplomatic work we do. Every South Korean leader and every Japanese leader should make a central focus of their work to put those relationships on really firm footing, to begin to confront with great honesty the history between the two countries, and to come to a resolution that will satisfy them and their peoples that each of them was treated in a way that was historically fair and peaceful, and recognizing the fundamental rights of every citizen of each of those two countries. If we'll all spend time remembering the importance of our countries working together, then I think we can work through all of these legacy issues that have burdened that relationship for far too long.
Thank you very much. This part of time given to this part is already gone. So let me thank to Mr. Secretary by thanking him. My colleagues will join me.
네, 잘 들었습니다. 자, 일본을 연결해서 좌장님과 함께 패널들과 함께 질의와 우리 마크 폼페이오 장관님의 응답을 들었습니다. 미국에 계신 패널분들께 다시 한번 마이크를 넘기겠습니다. 받아주십시오.
Secretary Pompeo, I have great admiration for what you and President Trump did in regards to North Korea. I mean, I think back to the Panmunjom Declaration between President Moon Jae-in and Chairman Kim Jong-un. And that declaration, that is a powerful one. The Panmunjom, that spoke to peace and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula. And that lent itself to the Singapore summit. And we all applaud that. We saw such great progress with President Donald Trump. and Chairman Kim Jong-un. Transformation of a relationship, complete verifiable denuclearization, a peace treaty, and the remains of the repatriation of Americans who were lost in the Korean War. And now what we're seeing is a number of years where North Korea is not engaging with the United States or the international community. We recently saw the launch of 2 cruise missiles, long-range cruise missiles. Most recently, 2 short-range IBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. No, I should say intermediate-range ballistic missiles. So I ask you this, Secretary Pompeo, you and President Donald Trump got so close to resolving these issues peacefully with North Korea. And we saw at the Hanoi summit where there was disagreement, where the North was not prepared to go the whole 100 yards. If you had to do that over again at the Hanoi summit, is there anything else you would do differently that could have continued that dialogue that was so meaningful? It gave us all so much hope, and you had such good progress.
Ambassador Trani, it's an important question. It's frankly one I've asked myself and my team an awful lot as we return from Hanoi. Disappointed that we weren't more successful there, that we couldn't deliver for the American people and for the people of Korea in the way that we had hoped that summit would ultimately deliver. I don't know that there was much more we could do that day.
I would like to start off by just saying that 30 years ago, Mother and Father Moon went to North Korea and met with Kim Il-sung and talked to them about the problems facing the Korean Peninsula. And that's a dialogue that's been going on now for 30 years. And Kim Jong-il has just recently invited Mother Moon to come back, and I hope that dialogue will bring about some positive results. The other thing I'd like to say is Think Tank 2022 is just one step that Mother Moon has been taking for years and years all over the world to bring about peace in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, every place. And I'd just like to say to her tonight, thank you for your efforts and thank you for Think Tank 2022. Now my question, and now the administration is trying to deal or going to try to deal with North Korea. And the things that you and President Trump achieved seems to be going out the window right now because immediately, just last couple of weeks, they launched 2 long-range missile tests. So I'd like to get your comments on after Afghanistan and what's happened recently with North Korea. How do you think we should proceed, and how do you think the Biden administration ought to handle these issues?
You served and saw how the Reagan administration responded when America and the world was challenged. He responded with strength, right? His central thesis of peace through strength is much akin to what we did with our America First foreign policy. We knew that the world was watching. And so when Assad launched chemical weapons, we'd said we would respond, we did. When Qasem Soleimani in Iran was threatening the world and threatening Americans, we made sure he couldn't kill another American. The world saw American resolve. They saw us build up alliances, 90 countries fighting against ISIS. The Quad built out, an alliance of Europeans in the Arctic working together to push back against Chinese aggression in the Arctic area as well. If the Biden administration doesn't follow that path and they follow a path that is weak or appeasing or accommodating, bad guys will seize on this and we will have more moments. There'll be more work done by Chairman Kim to build out his program. These are dangerous things. When America fails to lead and fails to work with its great friends like the people of South Korea, then the world is less secure.
제1회 띵크탱크 2022 포럼 함께하고 계십니다. 자, 마지막으로 이 시간을 정리하는 의미로 김현철 전 통일부 장관님께 마무리 멘트를 듣는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다.
싱크탱크 2022가 한미일 삼국을 연결하는 아주 원활한 진행을 보고 감동을 했습니다. 이번 행사를 준비해 주신 윤영호 위원장님과 관계자 여러분께도 감사를 드립니다. 마지막으로 긴 시간 동안 저를 비롯해서 오늘 참여해 주신 세계 각국의 많은 참가자들이 많은 배움을 했을 거라고 생각합니다. 참가해 주신 모든 분께 감사를 드립니다.
네, 고맙습니다. 김현철 전 통일부 장관께서 마무리만 발언을 해주셨습니다. 감사합니다. 자, 오늘 포럼 끝까지 함께해 주신 각계 전문가 여러분 그리고 지도자 여러분, 온라인을 통해서 참석해 주신 여러분 정말로 진심으로 감사의 마음을 전하도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그리고 오늘 기조 스피치를 해주시고 함께 끝까지 자리해 주신 마크 폼페이오 전 국무장관께 좀 아쉽죠? 그래서 마무리 인사를 좀 청해 보도록 하겠습니다. 폼페이오 장관님 나와 주십시오.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for hosting this. Thanks to Dr. Moon for putting on this important conversation as part of Think Tank 22. A shout out to the Summit on Peace in the Korean Peninsula that is being organized by Think Tank 22. It's really important work. Thanks to everyone who joined us. Thanks to the Universal Peace Foundation. Thanks to the Washington Times Foundation. You all are engaged in a noble enterprise. This effort for peace around the world and indeed the unification of the Korean Peninsula and peace on the Korean Peninsula is an important task. It is a moral task. It is a noble task. Please stay engaged. Please know that we are on the side of goodness. We are on the side of right. Thank you all for joining me here tonight. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to have a good conversation with so many people, not all of whom shared every view that I share. But I know that as we continue to dialogue, continue to talk, that we will deliver good things for the Korean Peninsula, good people for the people who live there, and peace and prosperity will be increased by the good works that we have done in these past few hours. Thank you for letting me be with you. May God bless each and every one of you.
네, 감사합니다. 마크 폼페이오 전 국무장관께서 여러분께 인사를 전해주셨습니다. 한반도의 평화와 통일을 위한 띵크탱크 2022 포럼, 정말 뜻깊은 시간이었고 역사적인 시간이었습니다. 그리고 여러분, 앞으로도 계속됩니다. 오늘 1회 포럼에 이어서 2회 마이크 펜스 전 미국 부통령과 함께하는 포럼의 자리에도 여러분 함께해 주시기를 기대하도록 하겠습니다. 자, 이상으로 역사적이었던 제1회 띵크탱크 2022 포럼의 모든 순서를 마치겠습니다. 여러분 모두 고맙습니다.